Welcome to the Good Divorce Show, where we can help you learn how to navigate the journey of divorce with less conflict, less debt, and equip you not to just get divorced, but also learn how to be divorced. Your host, certified divorce coach Karen McNenny, shares her wealth of knowledge, gets advice from other relationship experts, and interviews couples who learn how to have a good divorce, so you can too. Now here's your host, Karen.
Hello and welcome to the Good Divorce Show. I'm Karen McNenny, your host. Chatting today, I'm always delighted when I can get both parents on the show to talk about their journey together. I think there are so many listeners out there in divorce, post-divorce, thinking about divorce, who can't even imagine sitting in the same room with their soon-to-be or ex-spouse, let alone sharing in a conversation about how their journey together as co-parents has been. So I'm very excited to have with me today, Kelly and Kyle. Welcome to both of you.
Hi,
Thanks, Karen. Hi.
Give us a little bit of context. Feel free to tell this story together side by side as to how old you were when you met and the journey that brought you into parenthood. I know they're all scratching their heads. And I'm going to remind our listeners, you tell us the story and it'll unfold naturally. Where does it begin?
It begins in Lake Forest, Illinois, when both Kelly and I were 3 years old. And we both were.
Okay, speed ahead just a little bit.
Wait, but it's kind of relevant.
It is kind of
It's fine.
Yeah, I fell in love with Kyle in outside of Chicago in preschool, and then he moved away in second grade. So that is kind of important because he moved away in first or second grade. And then I came to grad school in Missoula, Montana, and I found this Kyle McAfee on Facebook who lived in Missoula, Montana. And so this was 25 years later. And I still loved this, whoever this Kyle McAfee was when I was 4, 5, 6 years old.
Part of what I love about this story also is reminding that these children, they are born from love and that there is a love story in these relationships, even if it doesn't lead to happily ever after marriage. And when we can capture part of the spirit of what brought people together and hold on to that as we raise our children, it just softens the edges. So here you are in your 20s, late 20s, 30s.
We were both in our early 30s when we reconnected. Yeah.
When you reconnected and then you find yourself pregnant, what were the initial thoughts and intention for your relationship and for this new budding family?
We were okay with not having kids. It was actually kind of more leaning toward not having kids. And so that's is ironic, the right word there. When I found out I was pregnant, it was like a no doubt I'm having this kid. And like, I remember exactly where I was. And then that day, the day was so bright, like all the colors were really vibrant. It was like the clearest thing Kyle knows I changed my mind a lot, or at least in my 20s I did. And I was really fickle, and that was like the clearest thing that had ever happened to me at that point, that like without a doubt I was going to have this baby. Now, how involved Kyle was going to be at that point and what our relationship was going to look like, no, that was not clear. And yet I wasn't afraid of telling Kyle, and I wasn't surprised when Kyle was supportive, so yeah, it was there's no doubt that we would have this kid and figure it out,
And along came baby Charlotte, and you began to figure it out. What did you figure out, and how did it change over time?
There were aspects of it where like I wasn't stepping up to like be there all the time for her in pregnancy. I think I was very much of the mind, like, if she's in pain, if she needs anything, I'll do that, but I'm going to keep kind of doing my thing. And I can't wait for the baby to come. I'll be there in whatever capacity, it's not like it was like a total, but no, I was definitely not the classic, like, doting partner for a pregnant person in an emotional way, in a like stuff around the house way. So I'm sure that was hard.
Were you living together at this time?
Not right away during the pregnancy, but like 4 months in, we moved in together into her small apartment, and then moved into another place where Charlotte was born later. So yeah, it was really like the 3 months leading up to the birth, 4 months leading up to the birth that we started living together. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which of course I thought would help. And then it almost made it worse, because then I was like, but we live together and he's not here. And so it was hard. It was hard, but I think it would have been hard no matter what, So, and looking back on it now, I can totally understand more about Kyle and where he was coming from. And, but yeah, I won't lie. I think that was the hardest part about being pregnant.
And obviously parents go through this. You don't get to focus on what your relationship is as much as, or it just totally shifts to what that looks like. So, and we hadn't had ample time to kind of figure it out beforehand. So
was there conversation about marriage, or what was the conversation about marriage?
Yeah.
I remember talking about it. I remember you had some idea maybe that you shared. I don't know if you're like specifically talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is my memory of you saying like, I could really see us getting married in 3 years, Charlotte being a flower girl, and like giving time to have this baby, and then seeing how our relationship would grow, and then maybe getting married. And that was reassuring, because then I was like, oh, he's open to that idea. Again, I didn't think I'd get married. I don't know. It just wasn't like, even now, like, just marriage is like, what does that mean? So I think, I mean, I know it's married, but like, which comes in the after. But at that time, especially, like, marriage wasn't, we're lucky to live in this time where it's okay to have a kid without being married. I mean, that is really the saving grace of all of this. Had we had any pressure from our families to get married, I think we would be really unhappy.
Yeah, it would be a way worse situation.
Yeah,
probably.
I think we'd be really unhappy.
Or there would have been really deep, dark years that we barely survived to get to. But yeah, instead, I got to live my deep, dark years separately, and Kelly got to live healthily, and now we're in a pretty good spot.
So what was the question?
Yeah. Well, what marriage. Here you are on the Good Divorce Show, and it's become clear to me and our listeners, you didn't actually have a marriage. Yeah. But in terms of legal and exchanging of vows, but you did move in together. You did have a child. And for about 1.5 years, you were under one roof. Mm-hmm. And then there was a formidable walk one day, talking with one another. What occurred in the decision-making from maybe in 3 years we'll get divorced and our daughter will be our flower girl to
married.
Or yes, thank you. Married.
She'll be the flower girl.
The flower girl at the divorce. That's a whole different kind of paradigm shift.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Maybe we should be having more ritual around divorce rather than it being in the shadows and in the shame and only in the courtyard. And we have guests on the show who talk about their celebration and their ritualizing of their ending and their completion. So how did that go down for the two of you?
Well, I don't know. I don't necessarily remember a walk. I remember that there was sort of like a lead up, a series of events basically where it was clear I was sort of self-destructing / trying to implode the situation. And I think where it felt like Kelly had basically, in the months leading up, been like, this isn't tenable for for us to live together. And there was sort of like a last straw in that realm. I mean, I know I'm being vague.
Well, no, you can be vague. I brought up the walk because the reason I brought it up, Karen, is to me it felt like So it was a walk right after Montana Film Festival, and we were on the Riverfront Trail.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the conversation we had that we both mutually agreed that we wanted to separate, that we were okay. Like, it's like we accepted who we each were in that situation. And I just remember feeling great relief that it wasn't totally one-sided of like who's ending this relationship. And I really do think that that's the beginning of our co-parenting and our friendship, because it's like I was heartbroken, I won't lie, but I was like, okay, Kyle is telling me that he doesn't want to change, and I'm accepting that, and I'm accepting him for who he is and where we are right now, and we're going to move forward. And I just remember that's like a very intellectual way of looking at that, thinking about that walk. But to me, that was a huge marker, for me at least, of like, we're both on the same page. We're both admitting our, because it wasn't all Kyle. We're both admitting like where we're at and what we need and what's not working. And it was mutual.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. No, you're right. I don't maybe remember that exact walk, but I remember that moment, or coming to that together. But also it was kind of always on the table, I think, just because we were logical about it throughout the pregnancy, where I even remember asking our midwife early on in a first meeting with her, like, do you know couples that do this without living together? Because I think we had just moved in, and it was like, instantly it was like, oh fuck this, oh sorry, oh no, this might not work, and so I think, obviously it was like devastating in some ways, but it was like, okay, we can do this together, I think.
We can love our daughter, raise her together, be kind to each other in that process, and not get married, and not live together and not get married. And this is where I'm curious about, the two of you got to kind of jump over a part of what can be a really devastating impact on the family and the children of navigating the legal path of divorce, which you certainly went through an emotional divorce. And then still had to figure out all the things that divorced people have to figure out when it comes to co-parenting. And it's schedule and communication and finances, emotional support. And sometimes, even in the best of conditions, that can still be a heartbreaking journey as we begin to divide and conquer our children's time.
Well, and I think, like you said, the now I just lost the thought in my head. That we got to skip over a part. I think that's very right, in that, and maybe sort of makes us a unique source of like advice or insight, because, and unique in that it's not going to apply to everyone, because, right, like, we didn't have the big background of, either a really great relationship to look back on and be like, oh, but that's how it used to be, I wish it was still like that. We didn't have that, but we also didn't have the groundwork of vitriol and pain and, horrible stuff. So like, when we got to that point and we were like, okay, this isn't going to work, we weren't stepping out of a huge jungle. It was more like a tangle of like wires, it was like, it wasn't such a huge task to remove from that, I think, because it wasn't so storied and thick with bad and good.
Interesting perspective, and definitely different, and one we want to hear more about when we come back from the break. We're going to continue our conversation with Kelly and Kyle, successful co-parents existing beyond the marriage and divorce paradigm, but with lessons to teach us of how we can do the very best as we connect and communicate with one another on behalf of our children. Stay tuned.
Are you thinking about getting divorced? Before you call a lawyer, call the Good Divorce Coach, Karen McNenny, a certified divorce counselor, co-parenting specialist, and mediator. Karen's signature Good Divorce experience will guide you through your divorce journey from the day you make that difficult decision to the day the decree is signed, all for a predictable fee. The Good Divorce Coach will teach you and your partner how to get divorced and be divorced with less conflict and less debt. Visit thegooddivorcecoach.com to get in touch with Karen.
Now, back to the show with Karen.
Welcome back. Karen McNenny here, helping you to find your path to the good divorce. Today, we're chatting with Kelly and Kyle, co-parents, unmarried, never divorced, and yet, even in the invisible sense, as soon as you bring children into this life, there is a marriage of DNA and a relationship that is a forever relationship. You will go on and share graduations and ballet concerts, funerals and weddings, all, even grandbabies, right? Those will be shared experiences for the two of you through your daughter, Charlotte, who is currently 7. And we've just caught up with Kyle and Kelly in their recognition that they were not going to live together, but they were going to raise this child together. And at the time you made that decision, Charlotte was quite young, 18 months old.
Yes. Yeah.
And so one of the first decisions that co-parents have to start working with is, how are we going to schedule our child's life? What feels appropriate to their age and to our lifestyle? How did you navigate those decisions, and how have they changed over the last 7 years, if at all?
Go ahead.
Well, I think the biggest piece, some people might recognize that 18 months as a kind of the first time I would consider taking Charlotte off, that I stopped breastfeeding her. It felt like the healthiest time for us. She was ready. I probably could have kept breastfeeding for a little while, but it really did feel like a natural time. And so therefore it felt like a natural time to split households, which I think is exactly about when we did.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think when we made the call, Kelly was like, okay, I'm weaning her off and so that we can make this work. And then I think right away we just knew with what our work schedules were and kind of how we already were handling parenting, as far as when the other person had obligations. Like, I had a job and then Kelly had, it just worked out where we could do it one half of the week, do our work life, and then the other half of the week be committed to being available for childcare stuff. You know, obviously when we lived together, there were times when we would all be together, but this would just be that without that, basically. So, yeah, we just decided we were going to split the week in half, which also was like a co-parenting arrangement this comedian who I really liked had openly talked about. And I was like, that just sounds so good to split the week in half, because you don't have to go too long without seeing them. And you also aren't carrying a big load, especially when she was 1.5, 2, where you're going 10 days in a row, which you can burn out as a solo parent with a toddler, I think.
Absolutely. Not even a think. That's a truth, Kyle.
Yeah.
Those little ones can run you hard. And Kelly, how was that adjustment for you, again, emotionally, beginning to wean your daughter? They're young, not having, the bedtimes and the storytelling and the morning snuggles, for both of you shifting into that 2 household, which I think maybe, when I even think for myself and other families I talk to, that's one part grief. And then there's also relief. There is some time, and sometimes we're shy about talking about the respite, which all intact families, I would encourage to find respite for both parents on a regular basis. And when we live in 2 homes, it kind of gets baked into the bread automatically. What was that journey like for you, Kelly?
To be honest, it's so long ago now. I do remember absolutely missing Charlotte. For sure. And yet I think I remember respite more. And I knew pretty quickly that I wasn't a full-time mom. I knew I liked having time to myself and to still be working and be creative. And I truly believe that does not mean I love Charlotte any less than parents who are there full-time. But I think Charlotte's a very physical child. So she was extremely attached to me, not just when she was breastfeeding, but also just like in general. She was always touching my boob. Always,
her hand was always down her shirt.
And she started doing that to Kyle. Like, she's just a very touchy person, and I loved it. But in general, I'm not a very touchy-feely person, so that was a character change for me. So I think I found respite in having my body and my space, even at that early time. I am sure that alone time, I definitely didn't relish it enough where I wanted to be alone, because I jumped into a pretty serious relationship right about that time. And because I'm not a person who wants to live alone. So that's interesting, and I'll have to think a little bit more on the timing of that, and Kyle might have some insight on that as well. But as far as Charlotte goes, I definitely missed her. And I think the hardest part was she's still so young and she's still so attached to mom, and Kyle can probably speak to this, but it did feel a bit challenging when we had to do the switch. For her, maybe.
I think
transitions can be disruptive.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think there were times, I think honestly, the earlier switches where she was 1.5, there was less cognition on her part what was going on, so those weren't brutal. But I think a little bit later, a year, when she was in that 2 to 3 age, those were kind of the worst transitions, where she would get upset. And they weren't always bad, but those were the times where we were okay, this is where I'm sort of feeling the pain of us splitting, of us divorcing, is and the guilt and stuff when she's super upset for nearly half an hour after mom leaves. Those were the times where,
Did you ever begin to find sort of a hack or a transition method that worked better for all of you? I've heard parents talk about, we only transition in and out of school, drop off and pick up, versus in a home, or we always meet in a park and then the off-duty parent says goodbye there.
No, we never did that. I feel that feels so weird. I hate to judge that, but it always felt better to do it in one of our respective homes, because that was just a safe place for her to kind of do her thing. I mean, I guess maybe it would have been smart so she didn't get so upset, but I just felt if she's going to be upset, I want her to be at home and feel safe. And no, I think at least for me, the tactic was just I have to, this is my responsibility to sit with this and to be as patient as I can with this. Because ultimately it was my fault, or our fault, for deciding to have a kid after dating for 3 months. I felt I've got to pay this debt, and however long she's going to be upset after mom leaves. But
I think that bring up. Oh yes, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, that being said, it wasn't, and maybe it's because it was so long ago, but I feel it was just kind of a year stretch, and then there have been times after that where attachment is clear, but also times where I get a win every once in a while, and when I leave, she gets upset, which doesn't happen that often, but it makes you feel weirdly good when they're inconsolable when you're leaving. And
I think you also make the good point, Kyle, that, not wanting to judge. And one of the things we always remind people here on the Good Divorce Show, just like how our children come into our lives, there's lots of ways for it to happen. And the parents and the child, every situation is unique. You have to follow the lead of your child as much as the lead of your co-parent. And honestly, at the end of the day, we're all just doing the best we can at that moment with the information we have, which means most of us are running around half blindfolded with scissors in hand, hoping that we make it through to the end of the day.
Yeah.
I think what feels maybe different, and everyone's gathering this right now, is there was no animosity between us. So we never had to like make a plan to not be in the same room together,
Yeah,
and be in the same space, which when I talk to my friends who are recently divorced or co-parenting, that's actually the issue, is it's more about the relationship. It's less about the child, and it's more about their comfortability, which I think speaks to what Kyle's saying, where it really, Charlotte's a kid. She has strong emotions. We all do. And it was in the most nurturing way that we're letting this child be upset and to transition, and we were all together. And I don't know. I think even though we could have probably made a plan to like have a third party or meet somewhere where you know what I mean? Like we had situations like that for sure where that would happen, and maybe they were smoother, but there was something about being in it together that I don't know.
It was also, we both had like a background in some early childhood education stuff. Like, well, I was your daughter's preschool teacher, but Kelly had done some teaching at preschool and teaching in general, and so had I. And so I think we approached it a lot like that too, of just kind of trusting our instincts with a kid that young and what they need. And yeah.
And I think you highlight so essentially important, the need to feel their feelings. Parents want to whisk it away. It'll be okay. It doesn't matter. It's fine here, numb, coping versus just letting the child feel the feelings and knowing that their sad, just like our sad, is temporary. It's not permanent.
Yeah. Charlotte's also, again, just an attached child, and this would come from both, like with both of us, let's say dropping off at preschool through first grade, may I say, that she would just hold on and scream bloody murder. I mean, she's just that kid, she just did not want to separate from us. And I don't know if that was from our situation or if that's just kind of how she is. I don't know. She's fine now. Second grade, she's like, see ya, So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there's some resiliency training there for her and her emotions. But that said, she's so adaptable. She just settles right in after a few minutes. She's with dad or with mom or at this house or that house. She's very adaptable. And that I genuinely think is like how she was born and her personality, nature versus nurture. I think she's going to be a bit of a traveler. I think she's just really, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
There is something.
She adapts really quickly, and she's a bit of a chameleon now. I don't know if you notice it, but she's just very like, when she's with you, she's like slightly not different, but like parts of her personality come out more when she's with her dad versus with me. It's just really fun to watch.
That is fun to watch. Yeah.
And that would make sense.
Yeah.
And, right. That she's going to shift, and she's an interesting child in the world, not alone, not unique, but special in that this is her normal. Mm-hmm. Charlotte will not ever have any primary memories of being in one household with an intact family, traditional mother, father. She has always lived in the abundance of multiple homes, many people bringing love to her. And I think so often divorce brings around this scarcity mindset that there's less, that, oh, the poor thing. And that we focus on what isn't happening versus what is happening as a result of these two loving families. And we're going to hear more about how her life has evolved. Before we go to that part of the story, listening to the two of you banter and kibitz and talk and smile about your daughter is just really worth celebrating. Sounds like you didn't have much challenge in deciding we're going to raise this child side by side. Did you ever have a parenting plan that you outlined for yourselves?
No, we never did. I think when we first separated, we discussed the importance of that and how we should definitely do that. And then just we didn't, out of, some laziness, but also just we were caught up in just trying to do it. And then a year or so went by and we were like, we just never even discussed it again. We were just like, well,
it's working.
And I think we were lucky that there were no big clashes over anything. And we were always kind of on the same page over big like schedule stuff, or just
even holidays.
We never fought over that. Yeah. And it was always just like, oh, Kelly has something and needs coverage, I'll do it. I have something and need coverage, she'll do it. And it's like we just kept, we never did it. Yeah.
It would be worth mentioning, we're both creatives, so I think that there's this understanding about our worlds that I'm not sure if we were in like different fields, or I don't know, we just kind of get it. Like, I understand what Kyle goes through when he's putting up a show, vice versa.
Let us be clear, not putting up like, oh, he's having a big drama tantrum show. Like, he's actually like performing.
Performance.
Yes, you are both very active in the performing arts, which is a particular kind of lifestyle that you have understanding of, as well as it sounds like a high tolerance for, we need to change things up. We need to be flexible. This is what I got going on. And yet you really cover each other and have each other's back where that's concerned.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Which I absolutely advise that's how it should be, with or without a parenting plan. Like, to say we have the standard and then we deviate from the standard as needed. And there are some families out there who get so locked into what is on that piece of paper, which nobody is watching except for you. And it sometimes is at the expense of just using your common sense that we need to make an adjustment here. This doesn't make any sense. We've got either family in town, or this is when we need to travel, or I would really like our daughter to be involved with this, or I'm just not available, I need to travel. And knowing that your co-parent, no different than if you were in one household, how you would support each other, that spirit absolutely should and can transcend into a 2-household family. Does it also carry over into the money? How did you all navigate the finances of raising this child together when, again, you don't have the guardrails of the law or child support enforcement division, and yet these little suckers still cost money and they only get more expensive over time?
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was really lucky in that Kelly figured out a lot of the financial stuff, as far as the insurance, the doctor checkup, the dentistry stuff, we didn't do much extracurricular stuff in the first 3 years of her life. We did no preschool. We did no paid daycare, childcare for the first 3 years because of the way our co-parenting schedule worked. Like, we hardly used babysitters, like, ever. And so it was cheapish those first 3 years. And so there wasn't really much to discuss financially.
I just remembered that I was actually on the EBT card. I remember
that's right,
going to the grocery store with Charlotte being a baby, and like feeling like I had 35 minutes, but till she like had a meltdown or cried, to like go get the peanut butter, the eggs, the milk. I qualified for Medicaid because I wasn't working. I was working only a part-time job. And I really think that the Montana system, at least, is amazing. I mean, still, she's on Montana Healthy Kids. It covers her dentist, doctor's appointments. It's incredible. So I did a lot of the, I love, making the appointments, going to the appointments. So that kind of was default to me. Yeah. And Kyle was like, that's fine.
I'm terrible at that. Like, you can tell me where to go, but yeah, I'm not good at that. So.
Yeah. So like, there was just this like natural balance of responsibility, and financially, I do have a cushion that I was allowed to take a little time off. And also I claim Charlotte on my taxes. So I get the childcare credit, which that justifies me paying for the extracurricular activities like gymnastics and ballet and all of those things. And that so far is really all we've had to manage, aside from the day-to-day. When Charlotte's at Kyle's, he covers all of that, those expenses like groceries and whatever, and vice versa. So it hasn't been an issue yet. It might when she's older and there's more costs. Like you said, they get more expensive, which I totally already know.
And even if she continues, if she continues gymnastics wise, like that's going to get crazy brutal if she goes to meets and stuff. So I think there's stuff we'll have to lay out logistically, but we have a really good groundwork of like, we'll cover, we cover what we can, and then we have family and friends that we can go to for help if we need, to supplement that. But yeah, I think just in the same way that our schedule it was just something we didn't have to sit down and hammer out. So
there's never been a battle over a spreadsheet, pennies and dimes and nickels. Right.
Well, I mean,
it takes so much energy.
There were preschool contribution payments where Kelly was like, "You're 4 months late on your pay." So, and I was like, "Sorry, here you go."
And that the two of you can have a lightheartedness inside of that part of your relationship is so encouraging and inspiring for folks. And when we come back from the break, we're going to hear about sort of what this family looks like today, who has joined the family, and when new relationships come into the story, how that can also take the stability of the co-parents and things can start to feel a little bit different. So stay with us and we'll hear about the here and now of Charlotte's world when we get back.
Are you thinking about getting divorced? Before you call a lawyer, call the Good Divorce Coach, Karen McNenny, a certified divorce counselor, co-parenting specialist, and mediator. Karen's signature Good Divorce experience will guide you through your divorce journey, from the day you make that difficult decision to the day the decree is signed, all for a predictable fee. The Good Divorce Coach will teach you and your partner how to get divorced and be divorced with less conflict and less debt. Visit thegooddivorcecoach.com to get in touch with Karen.
Now, back to the show with Karen.
Welcome back to the Good Divorce Show. Chatting today with Kelly and Kyle, co-parents to Charlotte. And this is a journey unique in that there was not a formal marriage, therefore there was not a legal divorce, but we all know if you're sharing a baby, you're sharing a life. So how do we do that in a mindful, intentional way? Kyle and Kelly have found a path over the last 7 years of their daughter's life to support each other and respect, to laugh and celebrate. Well, one of the things that many separated couples have to navigate is the arrival of new partners and new individuals. And that can happen at different times, under different circumstances. But at the very least, I think we can all agree that it is not to be understated that it is a significant shift for the whole family unit. So when and how did new partners start showing up? And what was the impact in the introduction with Charlotte? Kelly, maybe you should start.
She did.
She did. She was the starter of the new partnership.
It's funny, I kind of marked this time after I split up because I opted to leave. So it was really quite soon after we broke up. Like,
is that how you remember it?
Yes. I'm pretty sure I had coffee with Mike in November or December. And we broke up. We really officially kind of broke up in late October.
That was fine with me, honestly, that they started dating pretty much right away, like the next week after we were officially split. But yeah, but no, I never honestly had an issue with all.
Here, can I tell you what I think you had an issue with? And then you can say if this is true.
Sure.
I think Kyle had an issue with Charlotte's exposure to Mike. So like he was
And
fine
Mike is the
dating
now current husband, just to be clear. So Mike is the new guy on the scene.
Yeah.
Fine dating, but Charlotte got quickly involved in the story. Continue with your
That's
theory,
what
Kelly.
I think I feel like this was our first pretty significant speed bump and it came early on, of course, but just like in terms of, okay, this could go two different ways. And I think there were a lot of feelings and I think we navigated them really well. And in the moment, I felt a little bit like, why is he getting so upset? Like, this is none of his business. And yet now in retrospect, I'm like, oh, of course, I totally understand. So it got a little heated.
Yeah, I think what it was, you always wanted to have a partner in your life. And I think honestly, I've sort of fought against that my whole life. So I think that was part of it. But yes, she was so young. She was a year and a half, and being exposed to another male figure, I was like, she might even get confused who her dad is, you know?
Yeah.
And like, she gets up from a nap and he's there, and I'm like, no, I don't want that to be happening right now. Kelly proposed them moving in together pretty quickly after they started dating. So they had only dated for like maybe 2 months, 3 months. And she was like, I think we're going to move in together really soon. And that was the point where I was like, we need to pump the brakes. I'm like, can you please hold off a bit longer for these reasons, copping to like my emotional entanglement about it. Like she said, it's mostly about Charlotte's exposure, but there was still some, like, I think some jealousy and some attachment to Kelly then, because it was still so fresh. And, you know, I had he was saved in my phone as douchebag for a couple of years. If I'm
Here we are,
honest.
right? True Confessions, live radio.
Wait. After he started dating or before?
No, when you guys started dating, I already had his number because I knew him. I already had his number, but I changed it instantly to.
Wow. Okay.
It was like that douche or douchebag. Yeah, it was really mature, really mature text this thing. But
that's really funny. I don't think Mike knows that. I'll have to tell them.
No, he definitely doesn't know that.
Well, let's not tell him about this conversation. My goodness.
That's really funny.
So you did pump the brakes, Kelly. You did.
He split the difference. So I was like, wait 6 months. She waited another 3.5. So I felt like it was again sort of like our like it was meeting in the middle on something.
Yeah.
So how's the douchebag currently, Kyle? How has this evolved over time?
Oh, I love
because I think that fear of being replaced is very real, and I'm so grateful for you speaking transparently.
Well, yeah, and I think like I got lucky in a few ways in that, you know, I do love Mike, and he made it pretty clear early on without us having to have a conversation that he didn't have an interest in replacing or being a father on that level. So I didn't feel like my toes were stepped on in that way at all, which was great. But yeah, I think there was a fear going in, you know, okay, she's with a more successful, you know, person than me who has his life more together. And this could very clearly just go to like, yeah, Kyle, you can see her once a month, but we've kind of got everything else figured out. Thanks. You know, that was a fear in there. We all get together.
Yes, tell me about the family and how you all gather and what that feels like. And for the people out there thinking, oh my gosh, I cannot imagine, or the awkwardness.
Yeah, it sounds really cringeworthy, like that we go on vacations together as like my partner, Kelly, her husband, Kelly's stepdaughter, Charlotte. Like we're all walking the streets of Chicago together on.
You've done this recently?
Family vacation. Yeah, we did it last summer and the summer before. But we get together like every other week and have a movie night. Yeah, and dinner. And
conversation.
And we've been doing it.
I mean, we're all creative, and
we usually like roast the movie that we're watching. But I think it feels pretty normal for Charlotte because we've been doing that now for like a couple years.
So Melanie, Kyle's partner, has been a huge influence in our life because she's become really close with my stepdaughter Viv, where they do things together on their own. They'll go to dinner or have a movie night at Melanie and Kyle's house. She's just been a huge support. And Mike and I got married a year and a few months ago. So before then, everyone like knew who everyone was, but there was a little ambiguity around it. And for some reason, the marriage and the formalization of that marriage gave permission to Charlotte and to the girls to like call each other sisters, and then also calling Mike stepdad and Melanie stepmom. So that was kind of like, I mean, it doesn't really matter. It just like, it kind of felt interesting that marked a time where it gave permission for people to like make those distinctions. Other than, I think Charlotte's like, this is my family. I've got these sisters, and this is my stepmom, and I have two moms, and I've never felt what's the word? Threatened by Melanie. I mean, I'll be honest, like there's times I feel a little jealous, or I have felt a little jealous. I wouldn't be a human being if there wasn't that. But in general, I feel like such love and just so grateful for Melanie and the role she's played in Charlotte's life and Kyle's life. To be honest, Kyle would be such a miserable bastard if he wasn't with Melanie. And so, no, I'm just kidding. No, but I feel like really like how amazing that you guys have been together. What did you say?
2.5 years, and
more people to love Charlotte is what it sounds like you've done. You've just collected a village of people who love Charlotte.
Yeah.
What prompted you all to start a conversation and to follow through with a commitment to vacation together? I think this is a really
well, the first time we did it was in going to Chicago for Kelly and Mike's marriage celebration, basically celebrated by her family there. So that was the first one. And
we're like, Melanie met my whole family.
Yeah.
Melanie, it was,
I think we just I don't know. I think we had done movie nights and done enough like hang out as a whole family, and like we knew we enjoyed that, and we knew that it would probably be really fun to make a vacation work like that. Yeah, it was.
Well, Kyle still has family in Lake Forest in that area, so we both have connection there. There's like a reason to go to Chicago, but we've talked about going to Mexico together. We've talked about going to San Diego together. Like, I think that this is kind of the beginning. Chicago is a really nice ritual, and I like that Charlotte can see her grandparents. And by the way, grandparents on both sides. She met her great grandma in Lake Forest, Kyle's grandmother. And even when Kyle wasn't with me, I would go see his family in Chicago and bring Charlotte and make sure Charlotte saw her dad's side of the family. It's deep. It goes deep,
I think it's rare and beautiful and really special for Charlotte.
Yeah. Yeah. And we do too. And we see that's rare. And I think we always appreciate, like even at Kelly and Mike's wedding ceremony, Mike in his vows talked about how special this thing is. And, like I stood up there
holding the chuppah
while they said their vows, like that sounds like a nightmare on paper. Like I feel like, because also my model for it, and that's why honestly, Karen, I'm so glad you're doing something like this, because my model for it, and I think almost everyone from my generation and before, their model of divorce is war and hell. Like I think it's like gotta be 1% of people born in the 70s and 80s that went through a divorce with their parents. Obviously some circumstances out of their control, some things I don't blame them for, some things I do still blame them for, but like that was such a huge priority to model the opposite for Charlotte. And luckily, we're not just pretending our way through it. Like, we
kind of like each other and love each other. It's amazing.
Right. It's amazing. And yet it's such a simple equation. Choose love. Just choose love and write the story. And in your case, Kyle, you're rewriting the story and you're changing the cycle, which is exactly the pursuit of the Good Divorce Show, is to highlight stories like yours so that other families can have an imagination for the things that sound terrible on paper. But if you give yourself a chance, you can actually create a really beautiful family, even beyond the bounds of marriage. I've been so delighted to have both of you chatting with us today, opening up your heart and sharing the love, not only that you still have for each other, but most importantly, the love that you have for your daughter, Charlotte. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Kyle.
Thanks,
Karen.
And to all our listeners, here's another good example to remember. Everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end.
Thanks for listening. Do you have questions or thoughts about this week's episode? Let us know by following the Good Divorce Coach on Facebook and Instagram @GoodDivorceCoach, and leave a comment. And be sure to tune in every Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific or listen anytime wherever you get your podcasts.